Now, Rise News business correspondent Rotus Oddiri hosted a panel session at the World Economic Forum with the theme, Which 2050 Do We Want? One of the panelists, Agnes Callamard, Secretary General of Amnesty International UK, said the first 12 months of Donald Trump's second term in office is a perfect example of authoritarianism. Well, here it is.
Agnes, you've spoken about your worries over the spread of authoritarianism across the world, and Zainab was just talking about protests, and we've seen a number of protests flare up in different regions. As we march towards 2050, the protests seem to be matching. Well, I'm going to put that to you. Do you think the protests are matching the spread of authoritarianism, and is authoritarianism essentially, is there a check on it in your view?
Well, authoritarianism is galloping, it's increasing. It's not just an Amnesty International finding, it's a finding of everyone who research human rights, democracy, and so on. Some of the most long-term studies have concluded that right now we're back to 1985 level in terms of how many people in the world live in so-called democracies. So we have lost some count since 1985. Since the fall of the Berlin Wall, all the progress, we've seen a U-turn for people around the world. Authoritarianism is quick. Democracy takes a very long time to be established. Look at the United States, 12 months of Donald Trump in the White House, and it is a playbook of how authoritarian practices get embedded into every institutions, from attacks on freedom of expression, freedom of the media, academic freedom, freedom of association, attacks on dissent, creation of new militarized security forces that are unbounded, the attacks on migrants, on refugees, on trans, on women, all of those things have taken place in 12 months.
Well, the World Economic Forum's Global Risk Report has entered its 21st year. This year, geopolitical tensions have emerged as the most severe risk over the next 2 years, while economic risks have experienced the sharpest rises among all risk categories over the 2-year timeframe. The 2026 report is underpinned by the latest annual Global Risks Perception Survey, which this year brought together the views of over 1,300 global leaders and experts across academia, business, government, international organizations, and civil society. Well, our Rise business correspondent Rotus Oddiri joins us now from Davos to discuss this report. Good morning, Rotus. How are you today? I hope you're warm.
Yeah, well, good morning, Vimbai. Good morning, Dr. Vasi, Rufai, our viewers. Yeah, it's actually colder today than it was yesterday, but, it's what you sign up for when you come to Davos.
It is what it is. All right. So, Rotus, can you take us quickly through, the top 10 risks highlighted by the World Economic Forum in the latest report?
Yeah, so Rufai, we broke it down into two parts, the top 5 and then 6 through 10. So first off, it's geo-economic tensions between countries. Number 2 is state-armed conflict, which you can kind of, take as an escalation from number 1. Number 3 is extreme weather events. 4 is societal polarization, divide and conquer. And then 5, misinformation and disinformation. Going to the rest of the top 10, number 6 is economic downturn, erosion of human rights, and adverse outcomes of AI at number 8, number 9, cyber insecurity, and then number 10, inequality.
All right. Well, looking at other issues that have been spilling out, I think it's a very intriguing report. I can't wait to get into it in detail. But let's look at the geopolitical confrontation part of it, or rather, realignment of geopolitics. How does Mark Carney's visit to China, that's the first by a Canadian Prime Minister since 2017, tie into the observations from this report?
Yeah, so if you look at the summary of the report, Vimbai, one of the points that the World Economic Forum pointed out is that multilateralism is in decline. We've mentioned the fact that Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, we talked about this in our preview yesterday, is one of the heads of global organizations that will be here. And we talked about how the WTO has, almost been sidelined, because with what's been going on between countries wanting to favor bilateralism versus multilateralism. So Mark Carney's visit to China, I think we've got a quote from him. One of the things, and this is where it ties in, he said, is that, this visit is the first one from a Canadian leader in a while, and that essentially, with the progress that has been made between China and Canada, it essentially, solidifies the new world order that we've all been talking about. And a part of that is bilateralism, as opposed to multilateralism that the World Economic Forum points out. Now, to follow that, after that visit, a journalist actually pointed out to Mark Carney that during his campaign, he mentioned the fact that that China is the biggest security risk to Canada. So they said, you were running for office and you were saying China is the biggest risk, and now here you are flying to China to essentially sign up on trade deals. So how do you square, that circle? And the second quote from him was very short and to the point. He said, we basically take the world as it is, as opposed to the world that it should be. So reality over, I guess, emotions or feelings, saying that, look, we just have to recognize where China is, and despite what he said in the past, this is where it is. So you tie that back to the bilateral deals and what the World Economic Forum is pointing out in the reports with multilateralism on the decline.
Okay, Rotus, you and Aneze Osakwe discussed climate change, possibly not getting enough attention this year. Well, maybe that should not be surprising. But do extreme weather events, making the top 3 risks, change that in any way? In addition, does the World Economic Forum walk the talk when it comes to climate care?
Yeah, Dr. Wasi, they do walk the talk. As an example, so it's cold, right? And so sometimes I'd sit in our rental car, just turning on the heat to warm up. They have police that walk around the parking lots, and if they see that your car is on for more than 2 or 3 minutes, they knock on your window and tell you to turn off your car because they don't want you to be adding to carbon emissions. We had a hybrid, the battery is down, so we're using fuel now, and so they just basically look for whose exhaust fumes are coming out, and then they come and they tell you that. So they are walking the talk. It's anyone's guess as to whether or not the extreme weather events at number 3 will prompt more discussions on climate change. It just seems, and Nieze pointed this out pretty eloquently yesterday, it just seems that the whole geopolitical tensions, and with Trump coming in here tomorrow and everything, that just seems to be where all the attention is going. I mean, there's still topics on climate change, but, it's anyone's guess.
All right, so societal polarization is at number 4. Rotus, societal polarization in the era of ICE and Trump. How do Trump's comments on alleged Christian genocide in Nigeria tie into all of that? Because it's upending the world.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's around the world, Rifai. Thanks for adding the ICE situation and also all the other stuff that's going on. Religion, as we know, tribe, they are very, very delicate topics in Nigeria. And with the report points out, that toxic leadership essentially is dividing society. We're divided along income lines, gender lines, and so on. But, this example with the, Trump saying that there's been, according to him, Christian genocide going on in Nigeria, that, of course, led to a lot of divisions in the country where everyone was looking at each other through a religious lens. And then you go to ICE, the whole, immigration, racism, and so on and so forth. So the report just point that out. And again, I should point, Vimbai read it in her opening. This is not from just from WEF. WEF took this survey. It was business leaders, political leaders, and so on that actually put this input together. And that's just, it's the reality of what we're seeing.
All right. It certainly is a reality of what we're seeing. Now, is there a link between misinformation and disinformation at number 5 and adverse outcomes of AI at number 8? For example, we just concluded the Uganda election, and we saw that both sides released so many AI-doctored, videos and pictures and submitted them as evidence of electoral fraud.
Yeah, so on my panel yesterday, there was a gentleman from that was in a company that assists other companies with enterprise solutions for AI, and so he got a lot of questions on that link. And yes, Vimba, I mean, you can actually because look at the deepfakes. Even in our year-end report for 2025, we had a very sophisticated deepfake of Aliko Dangote, of all people, offering an investment, pitching an investment security to people, which was obviously fake, and we noted it. And that was AI. So social media is also part of that. Dr. Abati mentioned this, I think it was last week or the week before. Dr. Abati mentioned Grok and how Grok has been banned in certain countries and is under investigation because of releasing explicit images of people without their consent. So, while there's, of course, agents of misinformation and disinformation, you can't, divorce it from the advancement of AI and deepfakes and how that is, impacting things like the Ugandan election and other events around the world.
Well, it's day 2, Rotus, of the World Economic Forum in Davos. 2 things. What is on the menu for us today? 2, this is the first World Economic Forum that will take place without Professor Klaus Schwab, who founded and became executive chairman of the forum in 1971. Is he in attendance or he's not there? And then tell us about the new leaders, Larry Fink and Andre Hoffman.
Yeah, Larry Fink, of course, taking over. I'm not sure if this gentleman, the founder, is in attendance. But Fink, of course, with BlackRock having the largest assets under management for an asset manager, he is essentially trying to, take the leadership, I guess, in a direction that focuses more on capital flows and so on and so forth. But of course, the topic of the day is going to be what dominates. But we feel, at least feel, that the WEF is in good hands with Fink. Some worry, of course, because he's coming from Wall Street and, he's going to obviously have his own influence over matters going forward. But again, he commands a lot of pull. On the agenda for today, there's going to be a number of topics. One of them is on banking acceleration. So that's going to be talking about digital banking and advancements in fintech, how AI keys into that. Also, I think I'm not sure if cryptocurrencies might come up, but I know stable coins might come up because of the legislation that was passed in the United States to essentially legalize stable coins, and then what that's going to mean for cross-border payments. And then also EVs. I saw my first BYD here in Davos just yesterday. So China is making inroads in terms of electric vehicle market share in Europe. So can EVs really dominate is the second one of the other highlights there. And then governments as an economic super actors. Policy is what essentially is supposed to drive economic advancement across countries, and it starts with governments. And then you've got scaling AI. Now comes the hard part. How do you actually scale? And then Africa's job engine. Jobs, creating jobs for Africa's youth. So that's going to be part of the agenda for today.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that, Rotus. Do rush in and get yourself some hot cocoa. I don't know if they have... Okay, let me not say any brands. I don't know if they have the type that we like over here, but please do stay warm.